They call me the cleaner, a name that's got nothing to do with mopping floors. I scrub the world of things that don't belong, creatures that slink through shadows, things most folks would call supernatural, though that word feels too tame for the horrors I face. I'm a bounty hunter, but not the kind you hire off some dark corner of the web. My cases are the ones no one else can touch, the ones that make even the bravest flinch. I don't hesitate, don't negotiate. I pull the trigger, and it's over. I work for one person, and one person only. No, I can't tell you who, and no, you can't join the game. It's not a choice. It's a bloodline, a curse carved into your bones from the moment you're born. There's only a handful of us cleaners alive at any given time, and we don't exactly throw reunions. I can't spill much, but I can tell you this. Every job starts with a slip of paper, usually an envelope slipped through the mail slot. On rare days, though, it's hand-delivered by someone I call Star. She's just a messenger, nothing more, nothing less. Her real name's off limits, and Star's not her code name. I gave her that because her smile could light up a graveyard. She's got this radiance, a spark that makes you forget the grim business we're tangled in, even if just for a second. I'm not much for storytelling, my life's more about bullets and blood than spinning tales, but I'll crack the door open a bit, let you peek into the shadows I walk. This is about a case from a few years back, one that started with a knock at my door. That sound always sets my pulse racing. Cleaners don't have friends. We don't get visitors. A knock means Star's standing there with a job, and it's never a walk in the park. I undid the deadbolt, my fingers lingering on the cold metal, and eased the door open. There was Star, her grin as wide as ever, brushing a stray bang from her eyes. "Morning, Mr. Clean. How you holding up?" she asked, her voice all warmth, like she wasn't about to drop a death sentence in my lap. I managed a half smile, stepping aside to let her in. Still breathing, so I'm doing better than most folks I know. We moved to the kitchen, the linoleum creaking under my boots, and I poured her a glass of water, standard courtesy for a messenger. It's a small ritual, one of the few I've got left in this life. "I'm betting this ain't a social call," I said, sliding the glass across the counter. She took a sip, her eyes twinkling with that knowing glint. "One day I'll just show up to hang out, you know. Grab a coffee, talk about the weather." It was a nice thought, but we both knew it was impossible. The rules are ironclad, woven into the fabric of this existence, and nobody breaks them. "But yeah," she said, pulling a plain envelope from her back pocket, "this one's a beast. Only one picture this time." She slid it across the table, and my gut tightened before I even opened it. The photo inside was grainy, but it didn't need to be crystal clear to make my blood run cold. Two creatures stared back, massive, hairy, with eyes that burned like embers through the paper. I knew them on sight, lycanthropes or werewolves to most. My stomach sank, a pit opening where confidence should have been. Star caught my look and gave me a reassuring pat on the shoulder. "You got this," she said, her voice steady but not enough to drown out the dread creeping up my spine. I groaned, rubbing a hand over my face. "Two really? Solo?" She nodded, taking another sip of water. "They're mating, so you need to move fast before they split and vanish into the wind. Werewolves are as bad as it gets, vicious, strong, fast, built to kill. Forget the Hollywood nonsense. There's no silver bullet trick to make it easy. They die from blood loss, same as anything else, though explosives work if you don't mind the chaos. I prefer hit-and-run tactics, striking fast and fading before they can retaliate. But with two, you've got to cripple both before they tear you to ribbons. Best case, you catch them human, but that's a 50-50 shot at best. They're usually solitary, territorial as hell, so a mating pair meant this was going to be a nightmare. "Screw it," I said, my voice rougher than I meant. 2 weeks. If I don't check in, I'm dead. Send in number 2. Star laughed, a light sound that felt out of place in the moment. "Won't come to that. You always pull through one way or another." I snorted, leaning back in my chair. "Yeah, well, just give me the details. Let's get this suicide mission planned." I can't tell you where it went down, just a small town in the States, the kind of place you drive through and forget by the next gas station. Don't bother digging for news reports, you won't find a whisper of what happened. My family's been at this for centuries, and we're pros at erasing evidence. No headlines, no police records, no trace. When a cleaner needs intel, there's only one source you can trust, an imp. They're half human, half something else, demon, maybe, though the word doesn't quite fit. Small, frail, with one red eye, one blue, and a pointed ear, they blend in with contacts and a slouch. Near immortal, they're harmless enough to stay off the kill list, but their real value is information. They know every secret, every shadow, every whisper in the dark. For a price, they'll spill it all. I arranged a meet with the local imp through my contacts, and he picked a public spot. Imps don't trust cleaners, and I can't blame them. Noon, in a park, he sat on a bench, looking like a scrawny middle-aged man to anyone passing by. I saw the signs, the hunch, the mismatched eyes, the faint point of his left ear. I dropped onto the bench beside him. "Can we skip the small talk, imp?" He grunted, turning to face me, his thick brows furrowed like I'd just insulted his mother. "You cleaners, always in a damn hurry. Been dealing with your kind for over a century, and not one of you has time for a proper conversation." His voice was gravelly, laced with annoyance. I shrugged, keeping my tone flat. "No offense, but I don't get paid to chat about the rain. Tell me about the dogs." He sighed, scratching his hairy chin, his mismatched eyes glinting in the sunlight. "They're not dogs. Call them that, and you're dead before you start. Two of them, young, mid-20s. Strong as hell, but you've got experience on your side, I'd wager." He paused as a mother and her kid waddled by, the kid clutching a melting ice cream cone. 3 victims so far, all human, so they won't see someone like you coming. Females Karen, males Brandon. They're holed up in a lodge east of town, private property, weekends only. He yawned, rubbing his eyes like he hadn't slept in decades. They take homeless folks ones nobody misses. That's why they're still under the radar. I leaned in. "Where's this lodge exactly?" He smirked, pointing vaguely eastward. "Deep in the woods, far back as you can go. You'll find it." I opened my mouth for another question, but he was already on his feet, hobbling away. "Good luck, cleaner," he cackled over his shoulder. "You're gonna need it. Can't say I'll miss you if you don't make it. Charming creatures, imps. Killing one werewolf is a nightmare. 2, that's flirting with the impossible. You have to plan every move, weigh every risk, and pray it goes clean." I spent the next few days scouting the terrain, memorizing the forest's layout, every trail, every clearing, every choke point. I rested when I could, but sleep was fitful, my mind replaying that grainy photo, those burning eyes staring back. The job was set for a weekend night, when they'd be deep in their mating ritual. Werewolves are emotional creatures, especially during a feast, and I was banking on their distraction. It meant letting a victim die, and the thought twisted my gut, but collateral damage is part of the deal. I pushed it down, focusing on the task. The forest was thick, the canopy so dense it swallowed the moonlight, leaving me in near total darkness. I moved slow, deliberate, my boots silent on the damp earth. After half an hour, I reached a clearing. The lodge sat there, looking almost inviting, wooden walls, a chimney puffing smoke, a faded welcome sign swinging in the breeze. It could have been a postcard scene, except for the screams. They were raw, bone-chilling, the kind that make your blood freeze. Inside, a man was strapped to a table, his arms and legs bound tight. Karen and Brandon loomed over him, their voices low and guttural, chanting in a language older than any I'd ever heard, one that didn't have a name. Brandon held a blade, slicing into the man's skin with surgical precision, peeling it back like paper. Blood pooled in buckets at their feet, and I caught a glimpse of them smearing it on their arms, their faces, part of some sick mating ritual. My stomach churned, but I didn't let it slow me. I raised my rifle, sighting Brandon through the iron sights. The shot tore through the night, a sharp crack that echoed off the trees. The bullet punched through his chest, stopping his heart. He slumped to his knees, blood spraying, and hit the ground face first. Karen moved like lightning, vanishing into the trees to the right. I expected it. Werewolf reflexes are unreal, even in human form. She transformed now, a brutal process of snapping bones and sprouting fur, turning her into the monster I was sent to kill. I crept toward the lodge, the victim's weak cries cutting through the silence. "Help me," he croaked, his voice barely a whisper. "They're trying to kill me." I reached the table, his body a bloody mess, barely clinging to life. His breathing was labored, his lungs struggling. I placed a hand on his forehead, my voice soft but firm. "It's gonna be okay. Close your eyes. I'll take it from here." He tried to speak, but his eyes drifted shut, and his chest stilled. It was a shitty way to die. I stepped over Brandon's body, his brown hair matted with blood, blue eyes staring blankly at the sky. On the surface, he looked human. No giveaway like an imp's mismatched eyes. Werewolves are hard to spot until they're hunting you. I nudged him with my boot. No movement. But I entered the lodge, pushing the door open with my rifle, closing it behind me. The fireplace cast a warm glow, shadows dancing on the walls. It was cozy, a sofa, a recliner, a small kitchen in the back. No TV, but paintings of wolves lined the walls, some signed by Brandon. Guess he was an artist when he wasn't ripping people apart. Another screech tore through the forest, closer now. Karen was stalking, picking her moment. I dropped my duffel bag and set up 2 bear traps, one by the door, 5 feet back, and one by the window near the fireplace. Even a werewolf can't ignore steel teeth biting into bone. I settled into the recliner, rifle across my lap, and waited. 3 hours dragged by, the fire's warmth pulling at my eyelids, tempting me to drift off. Then came the footfalls, heavy, deliberate, circling the cabin. Karen was here, growling with every other breath. Werewolves are masters of stealth. You only hear them when they want you to. She was trying to rattle me, and it was working. Her talons scraped the wooden walls, a slow, deliberate grind. The cabin shook as something slammed into it, paintings crashing to the floor. My hands trembled, but I gripped the rifle tighter. Then silence. She was in kill mode. Every hair on my body stood on end, goosebumps prickling my arms. "You will die." Her voice rumbled, deep and demonic, like it came from the earth itself. The door exploded inward, splintering as it flew past my head and crashed into the kitchen. In the dim light, I saw her, 8 feet of black fur, muscle and fangs, eyes glowing like coals. She was terrifying, a nightmare made flesh. I fired 3 shots, the bullets ripping through her, blood leaking in slow streams, but she barely flinched. Werewolves are tough bastards. "Come get me, Stinky," I shouted, squeezing off another round. The bullet grazed her ear, and she roared, stepping toward the trap. I held my breath, waiting for the snap. But she saw it, flinging the trap aside with a snarl. It clattered against the wall, snapping shut uselessly. "Die now," she growled, lunging at me. I dove aside, but her claws caught me, swatting me into the fireplace. My vest tore, her claws slicing deep into my chest. I hit the bricks hard, my head spinning, vision blurring. Another screech popped my eardrums as I slumped against the fireplace, the smell of her breath, rotting meat and death, filling the air. I couldn't stop. I grabbed my pistol, firing blindly. A lucky shot hit her head, not enough to kill but enough to stagger her. She crashed into the dining table, splintering it. I stumbled to the window, throwing it open and hauling myself onto the sill. My body screamed in pain, but I slid out, hitting the grass hard. Her claws caught my ankle just as I escaped, crushing the bone with a sickening pop. I screamed, the pain like fire shooting up my leg. "You bitch!" I yelled, firing multiple rounds into her jaw. She jerked back, smashing the window frame, and my ankle slipped free. I hit the ground, my vision fading, the sound of her pounding the cabin walls echoing in my ears. I don't know how long I was out, but when I came to, I was lying in a puddle of my own blood, my leg useless. It took 10 minutes to stand, another few to hobble to the window. Karen was dead, bled out, a bear trap clamped on her ankle, shards of glass embedded in her skull. She must have stepped on it during the chaos. I pulled my burner phone from my pocket, my hands shaking as I dialed my contact. Mission's done. Need a cleanup crew and a pickup. Bring Helga, I'm hurt bad. I slid down the wall, staring at the dull stars above, their light barely cutting through the night. I blacked out, the world fading to nothing. When I woke, I was in a safe house, bandaged and doped up on whatever the witch doctors use to keep us alive. Recovery took weeks, my body piecing itself back together slower than I'd like. The scars on my chest and ankles still ache when the weather turns cold, a constant reminder of how close I came to not walking away. That's the life of a cleaner, blood, pain, and the next job always waiting. Star checked in a week later, her voice crackling through a burner phone. "You look like hell," she said, her usual cheer tempered by concern. I chuckled, wincing as the movement pulled at my stitches. "Feel like it too. You got another job already?" She laughed, but there was an edge to it. "Not yet. They're giving you a breather. Don't get used to it." I didn't. Cleaners don't get vacations, just moments to lick their wounds before the next envelope arrives. I spent my recovery digging into werewolf lore, not because I'm a scholar, but because I needed to understand what I'd faced. The books, old, dusty tomes my family keeps locked away, talk about lycanthropes as ancient predators, cursed by something older than humanity. They're not just beasts, they're driven by instinct, emotion, and sometimes something darker, something that feels almost intelligent. Karen and Brandon's ritual wasn't just instinct. It was deliberate, almost ceremonial. I couldn't shake the image of those paintings in the lodge, Brandon's signature scrawled on canvases of wolves under blood-red moons. Was it just art or something more? A record of their hunts, maybe, or a tribute to whatever power they served. The thought gnawed at me, but I had no answers, just scars and a job to do. When I was back on my feet, I tracked down the imp again. Not for a job, just to settle my mind. I found him in another park, different town, same hunched posture and mismatched eyes. He wasn't happy to see me. "You're still alive," he muttered, not looking up from his newspaper. "Lucky bastard." I sat down, ignoring his tone. "Tell me about mating werewolves. Why the ritual? The blood?" He folded the paper, glaring. "You cleaners, always poking at things you shouldn't. It's not just mating, it's a pact. They're binding themselves to something older, something that gives them power. The blood, the chance? It's not for them, it's for whatever they're calling." My skin prickled. "Calling what?" He smirked, standing. "You don't want to know. And I ain't telling." He hobbled off, leaving me with more questions than I'd come with. The next envelope came a month later, another knock at the door. Star's smile was there, but it was tighter this time, her eyes shadowed. "You're not gonna like this one," she said, handing me the envelope. Inside was a single photo, not of a creature but a place. A lake, its waters dark and still, surrounded by dense forest. A note was tucked behind it, scrawled in black ink, "Lake Hell. Clean it." My blood ran cold. I'd heard of Lake Hell, whispered about in cleaner circles as a place where things don't just live, they thrive, feeding on something ancient and hungry. "What's there?" I asked. Star shook her head. "Don't know. They don't tell me. But it's bad. Worse than the wolves." I nodded, already feeling the weight of the job settling on my shoulders. 2 weeks, I said. She didn't laugh this time, just nodded and left. Lake Hell was a 3-day drive through mountains and forgotten roads that barely qualified as paths. The closer I got, the heavier the air felt, like it was pressing down on my chest. The town nearest the lake was a ghost of itself, empty streets, boarded up shops, the kind of place where people don't linger. I found a diner, one of the few places still open, and sat at the counter, nursing a coffee that tasted like tar. The waitress, an older woman with tired eyes, didn't look at me twice. "You passing through?" she asked, wiping the counter. "Something like that," I said. She nodded, like she'd heard it before. "Stay away from the lake. People don't come back from there." I didn't respond, but her words stuck with me. I paid and left, heading for the imp I'd been told to meet. He was waiting in a cemetery, sitting on a cracked headstone like it was a park bench. His red eye glinted in the dusk, the blue one hidden behind a contact. "You're late," he growled as I approached. "Traffic," I said, not in the mood for his attitude. "What's at Lake Hell?" He chuckled, a dry, rasping sound. "You really want to know? Most cleaners don't make it back from that place." I leaned in, my voice low. "I'm not most cleaners. Talk." He sighed, picking at a loose thread on his coat. "It's not one thing, it's many. The lake's a nexus, a place where the veil's thin. Things come through, things that don't belong. Some say it's a gate, others say it's alive. All I know is people go in and they don't come out. Not human, anyway." I pressed him for more, but he clammed up, muttering about needing to stay alive. "You're on your own, cleaner," he said, vanishing into the shadows. The lake was a day's hike from town, through woods so thick they seemed to swallow sound itself. I carried my usual gear: rifle, pistol, bear traps, and a few extra surprises I'd packed after the werewolf job. The air grew colder as I approached, the trees thinning until I reached the shore. Lake Hell was beautiful in a haunting way, its water so dark it looked like ink, reflecting nothing but the sky above. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the occasional ripple on the surface. I set up camp 100 yards back, hidden in the trees, and waited for nightfall. Whatever was here, it'd show itself after dark. Cleaners don't hunt in the daylight, not for things like this. The first night was quiet, too quiet. No birds, no insects, just the lake sitting there like it was watching me. I stayed awake, my rifle across my lap, scanning the shore. Around midnight, the ripples started, small at first, then bigger, like something was moving just below the surface. I gripped my weapon tighter, my heart pounding. Then I heard it, a low, guttural chant, not unlike the werewolves but older, deeper, like it came from the earth itself. Shadows moved along the shore, humanoid but wrong, too tall, too thin, their limbs bending in ways that made my skin crawl. I counted 5, maybe 6, their forms flickering in the moonlight. They weren't hunting me, not yet. They were performing some kind of ritual, their hands dipping into the water, pulling up handfuls of something dark and viscous. I couldn't tell if it was blood or something worse. I didn't move, didn't breathe. My job was to clean, not to understand, but every instinct screamed that this was bigger than werewolves, bigger than anything I'd faced. The chanting grew louder, the shadows' movements more frantic. Then, from the center of the lake, something rose, a shape, massive and formless, its surface gleaming like wet stone. The shadows knelt, their voices rising in a crescendo. I couldn't make out words, but the sound hit me like a physical force, pressing against my chest, making my ears ring. I wanted to run, but my legs wouldn't move. The shape in the water pulsed, and for a moment, I swore it looked at me, its presence heavy, ancient, alive. I don't know how long I sat there, frozen, but the shadows eventually sank back into the lake, the shape vanishing with them. The silence returned, heavier than before. I didn't sleep that night, my mind racing. This wasn't a hunt, it was a war, and I was outgunned. The next day, I scouted the shore, looking for signs of the ritual. I found nothing but smooth stones and a faint, acrid smell, like burned hair and sulfur. I set traps, bear traps, tripwires rigged with flashbangs, anything to slow down whatever came out of that lake. Night 2 was worse. The shadows returned, but this time, they weren't alone. Something else was with them, smaller, faster, darting between the trees. I caught glimpses, claws, glowing eyes, a body that moved like liquid. I fired a warning shot, and the thing screeched, a sound that made my teeth ache. The shadows froze, their heads snapping toward me. I'd been made. I ran, my traps forgotten, the forest blurring around me. The darting thing followed, its claws scraping bark, its breath hot and rancid. I fired behind me, not aiming, just hoping to slow it down. A flashbang went off, lighting up the woods, and the screeching stopped for a moment. I kept running, my lungs burning, until I reached a clearing. The lake was there, its surface still as glass. The shadows were gone, but the smaller thing was still out there, circling. I set up a defensive position, my back to a tree, rifle ready. Hours passed, the forest silent again, but I knew it wasn't over. At dawn, I found claw marks on the trees around me, deep and jagged, like a warning. I called Star from a burner phone, my voice hoarse. This ain't just a cleanup. Lake Hell's a goddamn nightmare. I need backup. She was quiet for a moment, then said, "They don't send backup for places like that. You know that." I cursed, slamming my fist against the tree. Then what the hell am I supposed to do? Her voice softened. "You're the cleaner. Figure it out. But be careful. They're watching." She hung up, and I was alone again, the lake looming in the distance. I spent the next week preparing, rigging the shore with every trap I had, explosives, tripwires, even crude pits lined with sharpened stakes. I wasn't just hunting now, I was fortifying, building a kill zone. The shadows came every night, their rituals growing more intense, the shape in the lake rising higher each time. I caught glimpses of it, tentacles, maybe, or something that mimicked them, coiling and uncoiling in the water. The smaller creatures, scouts, I figured, tested my defenses, tripping flashbangs and setting off traps. I took one out on the 5th night, a lucky shot that caught it midly. It looked like a cross between a wolf and something aquatic, its body slick and scaled, its eyes glowing like phosphorus. It didn't bleed red, it bled black, the liquid hissing as it hit the ground. By the 10th night, I was running on fumes, my body battered from lack of sleep and constant vigilance. The shadows were bolder now, stepping onto the shore, their forms more solid. I counted 8, their chanting louder, almost deafening. The shape in the lake was massive now, its presence suffocating. I knew I couldn't wait any longer. I set the explosives to detonate in sequence, a chain reaction that'd light up the shore and, with luck, take out the shadows. I waited until they were deep in their ritual, their hands submerged in the lake, and triggered the first charge. The explosion rocked the night, fire and shrapnel tearing through the shadows. They screamed, a sound that wasn't human or animal but something else entirely. The lake churned, the shape thrashing as the blasts continued. I fired into the chaos, emptying clip after clip, not caring what I hit as long as it bled. The smaller creatures came next, 3 of them, moving like liquid through the smoke. I took one down with a headshot, its body dissolving into the ground. The second caught me off guard, its claws raking my side before I buried a knife in its throat. The third was faster, pinning me to the ground, its jaws inches from my face. I jammed my pistol under its chin and fired, the black blood spraying across my face, burning like acid. I rolled free, my body screaming in pain, and triggered the final explosive. The shore erupted, the lake boiling as the shape sank, its screams echoing long after the flames died. I don't know how I made it out. I woke in a ditch, miles from the lake, my gear gone, my body a map of cuts and burns. I called for pickup, my voice barely a whisper. "It's done. Send Helga. I'm half dead." The cleanup crew found me a day later, and the witch doctors worked their magic, though it took months to feel human again. Lake Hell was quiet after that, or so I heard. No more disappearances, no more whispers. But I know better. Something's still down there, waiting. Cleaners don't get happy endings, just more envelopes, more shadows to hunt. That's my life. Believe it or not, some legends are real. I've got more stories, but for now, another knock's coming, and I've got work to do.